Hello friends, welcome to the Night Watchman channel. Today I'm going to tell you a terrifying and thrilling creepy horror story that will make you feel the chill of fear. If you enjoy my story, don't forget to like and subscribe so I can feel your love and support through your likes and subscriptions. I never planned on staying at Taco Bell that long. When I first took the night shift job in Prescott, Arizona, it was supposed to be temporary, just a paycheck to keep me afloat until I could figure out what to do after college didn't work out. But months passed, and somehow I was still there, pulling late hours, scrubbing floors that never seemed clean, and trying not to think too hard about how easily the days all started to blur together. It wasn't a bad job, not exactly. The people made it bearable. There was Amber, my younger cousin who just graduated high school, and Renee, our manager. Mid-30s, no nonsense, tough but fair. We made a decent team, but closing shifts, those were brutal. That night started like every other, long, loud, and greasy. We were running on fumes, 10 hours straight on our feet, orders piling up, the fryer sputtering oil like it was angry, and the drive-through headset beeping in our ears nonstop. The smell of taco meat and burnt oil clung to everything, our clothes, our hair, even the air we breathed. By 12:47 a.m., the last car rolled away and Renee finally locked the doors. I remember the click of the lock echoing louder than it should have, like the building itself exhaled. "God, I'm starving," Amber groaned, tossing her headset onto the counter. We didn't even take a break. "Grab something before we clean up," Renee said, already rubbing her temples. "You two earned it." We built our little feast, leftover tacos, half-warm nacho fries, and one of those ridiculous freeze drinks that were mostly syrup and ice. We sat in the booth near the front window. The world outside was still. The parking lot was nearly empty except for a few cars from the dive bar across the street. The fluorescent lights above buzzed softly, the soda machine hummed, and for the first time all night, there was peace. Then, bang, bang, bang! The sound hit like a gunshot. All three of us jumped. Amber nearly spilled her drink. "What the hell?" I muttered, my heart pounding as I turned toward the door. A man stood outside, not knocking, pounding. His fist slammed against the glass with a force that rattled the frame. He wasn't a customer, not anymore. He looked off, disheveled. His clothes wrinkled, dirty in places. His hair stuck up like he'd been sleeping rough. But it was his eyes that got me, wide, unblinking, and fixed on us through the glass. Renee stood up, pulling her apron tighter. "I'll handle it," she said, trying to sound steady. She approached the door but kept it locked. "Sorry, sir. We're closed." The man shook his head. His breath fogged up the window. "Please," he said, "I just need to eat. Just real quick." "Kitchen's closed," Renee replied, firmer this time. "You'll have to come back tomorrow." He didn't move, didn't even blink, just stared at her, his mouth slightly open. The air between them felt wrong, too still, too quiet. Then softly, almost pleadingly, he whispered, "Let me in." Renee took a step back. "Sir, I can't do that." "You need to leave." He tilted his head, like he was listening for something behind her. Then he glanced over his shoulder, once, quick, like he thought someone was following him. Amber leaned closer to me. "He's drunk, right?" "Probably," I said, but even as I said it, I didn't believe it. After a moment, Renee turned and walked back to us. "Just ignore him," she said, sitting down again. "He'll leave once he realizes we're not opening the door." But he didn't. He stayed. Minutes passed, then 20, then 30. He didn't knock again, didn't shout. He just stood there, sometimes pacing near the doors, sometimes walking toward the edge of the lot, then back again, like he was waiting for something. I checked the security cameras. He didn't have a car, didn't even have a bag. "Maybe we should call security," Amber whispered. Renee shook her head. "For what? He's not doing anything. Let's just finish up and go home." We tried to focus on cleaning. I scrubbed the fryer, Amber wiped the counters, Renee counted the register. But I couldn't stop glancing at the monitor. Every time I looked, he was there, watching. At some point, I noticed him walking toward the bridge down the street, the one that spanned over Granite Canyon. For a second, I actually felt relieved. Maybe he'd finally left. But 10 minutes later, he was back, standing closer than before, his face half lit by the neon glow of the Taco Bell sign. I felt it then, a chill deep in my chest. Something about the way he waited made my stomach twist. By the time 2 a.m. hit, I'd stopped checking. I just wanted to finish and leave. We cleaned fast. Renee finished counting the till while Amber took the trash bags out back. I went to lock the front doors again, just habit, and that's when I noticed it. He was gone. No figure by the window, no movement outside, just the empty parking lot glowing under the flickering streetlights. I ran to the back. "Hey, he's gone," I said, breathless. Renee looked up. "Finally." "You sure he didn't leave while you were up front?" Amber asked. I shook my head. "I didn't see him leave. He was just gone." Renee frowned. "Let's check the lot together before we go." "I don't like this." We climbed the metal stairs to the roof. From up there, you could see everything. The empty highway, the bridge, the canyon beyond. Nothing. Not a shadow, not a sound. "Where the hell did he go?" Amber murmured. We hurried through the last tasks, barely speaking. Every sound made me flinch. The squeak of sneakers on tile, the hum of the cooler, the rattle of the fryer lid. By 2:35, we were ready to leave. Renee unlocked the side door, and the cold desert air hit us. That's when I felt it again. That crawling sensation on the back of my neck, like eyes on me, watching, waiting. We scanned the lot as we walked to our cars. Nothing. But still, I couldn't shake it. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see him standing by the dumpster, or behind a car, or reflected in the glass. Amber's hands were shaking as she fumbled her keys. Renee muttered something under her breath and double-checked the locks twice. When I finally slid into my car, I caught myself checking the back seat before starting the engine, just to be sure. We drove off in silence. The streetlights thinned out the farther we went, and by the time I turned onto my road, the world was pitch black. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the apartment sounded like a knock. Every shadow looked too tall. I kept seeing his eyes, wide and glassy, staring through the glass. A few years later, I told Amber about something that had happened before she started working there. It was a late shift, maybe 2 years earlier. I was alone on register when a guy came in near closing. He was tall, sunburned, dressed like an outdoorsman. He seemed happy, too happy for midnight, said he was visiting from Nevada. "Big night ahead," he told me with a grin. "Need to fuel up before the jump." I laughed, thinking he meant jumping a car battery or something. I handed him his burritos, told him to have a safe night. He thanked me, waved, and disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, the news broke. A man had died overnight. Base jumper. His parachute failed. He'd leapt from the bridge into Granite Canyon, just a few hundred feet from our store. The article said he'd eaten before the jump. They even mentioned Taco Bell. I never forgot that. And I never forgot the man who came years later, the one who wouldn't stop staring, pacing near that same bridge. Sometimes, late at night, when I drive past that old building, I look toward the canyon, and I swear I still see someone standing there, watching the lights, waiting for the doors to open again. Story 2. I always told myself I wasn't the kind of person who went looking for trouble. But that night, God, that night proved you don't have to go looking for it. Sometimes it just finds you when you're tired, hungry, and 2 hours past the point where you should have called it quits. It was supposed to be simple. A weekend road trip, a break, a chance for me and my best friend Claire to clear our heads after everything that had gone wrong this year. Her breakup, my layoff. Both of us trying to pretend that driving across 3 states with bad playlists and gas station coffee could fix the heavy silence sitting between us. We left Charlotte, North Carolina around noon. The plan was to reach Baton Rouge, Louisiana by the next morning. No reservations, no deadlines, just open road and cheap motels along the way. But somewhere past midnight, the world around us started to disappear. The highway stretched like a black ribbon across the map. No towns, no exits, no headlights but our own. Even the radio had gone silent, just static now. The kind that makes your nerves buzz when the night gets too quiet. Claire was slumped in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone. Any luck with service? I asked, trying to sound casual. She frowned. No bars. Not even one. You sure we're still on the right road? Pretty sure, I said, though my gut disagreed. GPS froze about 20 minutes ago. She groaned. Great. So we're lost and starving. I told you we should have stopped back in Greenville. You said you wanted somewhere quieter. Congrats, we found quiet. Literal, deathly quiet. Her sarcasm made me smirk, but it didn't help the unease crawling up my neck. The fuel gauge was flirting with empty, and my stomach had been growling for the past hour. Then, like a miracle, a green highway sign flashed by in the beam of my headlights. Exit 117, food, gas, lodging, 1 mile. I exhaled, almost laughing from relief. There! Civilization. Claire leaned forward. Thank God. What's open at 1 a.m. though? I squinted as we passed the smaller sign underneath. Looks like a Shell station, a motel, and a Taco Bell. She smiled sleepily. If they're open, I'll marry whoever's working the drive-thru. We took the exit, the tires crunching on cracked pavement as the road wound through a forgotten town called Bell's Crossing. The name fit. It felt like a place time had crossed over and left behind. Streetlights flickered weakly. Most buildings were boarded up, their windows blank and black. The gas station's lights buzzed, moths orbiting around the flickering bulbs. And there it was, the Taco Bell. Its sign glowed faintly purple and white, proudly flashing open 24 hours beneath the logo. I slowed the car. See? We're in luck, but Claire's voice softened. No cars, no customers. Even the drive-thru's empty. Better for us, I said, turning into the lot. The place looked clean enough, but there was something still about it, like the air was holding its breath. I pulled up to the drive-thru speaker. The static buzzed to life. Welcome to Taco Bell, a man's voice said. Deep, flat. Go ahead with your order. Yeah, I started, glancing at Claire. Can we get... And then we heard it, a sound beneath the static, muffled, sharp, a scream. Not loud, but unmistakable. Claire froze. Her eyes darted to mine. Did you? Yeah, I whispered. My pulse thudded in my ears. Then silence. The kind that swallows everything. The voice came back. We're closed. My stomach nodded. But your sign says open 24. The voice cut me off, firmer now. The sign's wrong. We're closed. The static hissed, then died completely. Claire grabbed my arm. Eli, we're leaving. Now something in me hesitated. That scream, it hadn't sounded like a prank or a fight. It sounded like fear. I just want to check the front, I said, opening the door. Claire hissed. You're insane. I'll be 2 minutes. The night air was colder than I expected. It smelled faintly of oil and old grease, but underneath that, something metallic, coppery. I walked toward the glass doors. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered unevenly. I could see the counter, the soda machine, a few chairs turned upside down on tables. Then, movement. A man stepped into view. He wasn't wearing a uniform, just a dark hoodie, sleeves pushed up over heavily tattooed arms. He looked at me through the glass. Didn't speak, didn't move. I knocked lightly. Hey, are you guys open? He stared for a second too long, then shook his head. I pointed to the glowing sign. Says open. He tilted his head slightly, lips barely moving. The sign's wrong. Something about the way he said it. It didn't sound like he was annoyed or tired. It sounded like a line he'd been told to repeat. And that's when I saw her. Behind him, half hidden by the soda fountain, a young woman crouched on the floor. Her uniform shirt was torn. Her eyes, wide, terrified, locked on mine. She mouthed 2 words. Help me. My breath caught. The man noticed my gaze. His body shifted, blocking my view. Then his mouth twitched into something that could have been a smile or a warning. You should go, he said. I took a step back. My throat felt dry. Claire's voice rang out from the car. Eli, get in! Now! And then it happened again. Another scream. Louder, closer. Someone shouting something I couldn't make out. The man's face hardened. His voice dropped low. Leave. That was enough. I turned and ran. My keys fumbled in my hand as I dove back into the car. Claire already had it in drive. We tore out of the lot, tires squealing, hearts pounding. We didn't speak for a while. The highway came back into view, the empty fields swallowing us again. Finally, Claire said, voice trembling, "What the hell was that?" "I don't know." "Eli, you saw something. I saw your face." I nodded slowly. There was a girl. She looked trapped. Claire's hands were shaking on the wheel. "We're calling 911. She pulled over on the shoulder, grabbed her phone. Miraculously, a single bar appeared. She gave the dispatcher everything. The location, the sign, the man's description. They told us to stay put. 20 minutes later, we saw red and blue lights flashing down the road toward Bell's Crossing. We followed, slowly this time, stopping at the intersection near the gas station. Police cars surrounded the Taco Bell, their lights bouncing off the glass. An officer waved us over. "You two the callers?" We nodded. He exhaled hard, like he'd been holding his breath for hours. "You did the right thing." There was a robbery. Guy took the night staff hostage. One of them got hit trying to fight back. Claire covered her mouth. "Are they?" "They'll live," the officer said. "If you hadn't called, it might have gone different." I looked toward the restaurant. They were leading the man out in handcuffs. The same hoodie, the same tattoos. He didn't look angry or scared, just blank, like his mind wasn't there anymore. And behind the shattered front door, I saw her, the girl from before, wrapped in a blanket talking to a paramedic. She looked up just once, met my eyes, then mouthed two words again. "Thank you." We drove away in silence. Neither of us could eat. Neither of us spoke until we crossed back onto the main highway. The sign for Bell's Crossing disappeared in the rearview mirror, swallowed by the dark. But sometimes, when I close my eyes at night, I still hear it. That scream through the static. The way the man's voice said, "The sign's wrong. Maybe we saved someone. Maybe we barely escaped with our own lives. But one thing's certain. If we hadn't listened to our instincts, I wouldn't be here to tell you this story." Story 3. I was 18 when I finally decided I couldn't take it anymore. The constant yelling, the slammed doors, the cold silences that lingered for days. It was suffocating. My parents' house had stopped feeling like home a long time ago. Every argument felt like a storm waiting to swallow me whole. So when graduation came, I packed everything I could fit into my beat-up Honda Civic and left without looking back. I didn't have much of a plan, just a vague idea that I needed to get anywhere far from Ohio. I picked a random city on the map, Austin, Texas, because it sounded warm, different, alive. I told myself it would be temporary, just until I figured out what I wanted. The first few months were rough. Austin was fast and loud, filled with people who already had their lives together. I worked odd jobs, barista, cashier, dog walker, anything that would cover rent from my tiny studio. I didn't know anyone, and loneliness hit harder than I expected. That changed when I met Sophie. We met through a Facebook group for local college students. She wasn't in school either, but she was funny, wild, and a little reckless, the kind of person who made the world feel less heavy. We started hanging out every day, late-night drives, blasting music, cheap wine on the apartment floor, laughing until the neighbors complained. For the first time in months, I felt like I belonged somewhere. Sophie worked nights at a small taco place on the outskirts of the city, Taco Haven. The sign outside flickered, the walls were yellowed with age, and the soda machine made a constant low hum. It wasn't fancy, but it was where Sophie spent most of her nights. Sometimes I'd stop by, just to keep her company while she cleaned or waited for closing. My boyfriend at the time, Eric, didn't like that. He was one of those people who seemed perfect at first, attentive, charming, always texting me to ask how my day was. But soon those "how's your day" texts turned into "where are you?" and "who are you with?" I brushed off the red flags. I told myself he was just protective, that it was sweet. But the truth was, he wanted control. Sophie saw it right away. "You know he's bad news, right?" she'd said one night, wiping down the counter. "He just worries," I muttered, not meeting her eyes. She smirked. "Yeah, that's what they all say before it turns into tracking your location." She wasn't wrong. It was a Friday night in late October, the kind of night when the streets are quiet and the air feels heavier than usual. I was sitting in my usual booth at Taco Haven, sipping on a watered-down Dr. Pepper while scrolling through my phone. Sophie was behind the counter, humming along to a song on the old speaker. Only 2 customers had come in all night, both drive-through orders. The fluorescent lights above flickered every few seconds, and the hum of the fridge filled the silence. That's when the door opened. A man walked in, tall, maybe 6'4", with a long gray beard that hung down to his chest. His coat looked worn and dirty, the kind of military green that had long since lost its color. He moved slowly, almost dragging his feet, and sat down at a table directly across from me. I glanced up just long enough to meet his eyes. Dark, heavy, unblinking. Something in my stomach tightened. I lowered my head and texted Sophie. "That guy's giving me weird vibes." A second later, she peeked out from behind the fryer. "Oh my God, I see him. He's been in before. Always at weird hours." "Don't talk to him." I forced a nervous laugh, trying to brush it off, but my hands felt clammy. Sophie waited a minute before walking over to him, her small frame looking almost fragile next to his. "Hey, sir," she said politely. "You have to order something if you're staying inside." The man didn't reply. He just turned his head toward her slowly, like his neck creaked with the effort. After a pause, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a handful of crumpled bills and slapped them on the counter. Sophie hesitated before handing him a cup. "Drinks are over there." He filled his cup, then went right back to his seat, same table, same chair, staring straight ahead. An hour passed. Every time I glanced up, he was still there. Not eating, not drinking, just staring. His eyes followed me whenever I moved. By 1:30 a.m., Sophie was finishing up the last of her cleaning. "Let's get out of here," I whispered when she walked over to dump the mop water. "Yeah, give me 5 minutes," she said, trying to sound casual. When she flipped the sign to closed, the man didn't move. Sophie walked over again, this time with a little more authority. "Sir, we're closed now. You'll have to leave." He didn't say a word. He stood up slowly, took one last sip from his cup, and shuffled toward the door. As he passed, he looked at me and smiled. Not a friendly smile, one of those crooked, knowing smiles that made your skin crawl. The bell above the door jingled as he left, and I finally exhaled. Sophie laughed nervously. "Well, that was creepy." "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "Let's just go." We stepped outside into the cool night air. The parking lot was empty except for Sophie's old Corolla. Streetlights cast long shadows, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. We were halfway across the lot when I heard it. A scraping sound, like metal dragging on concrete. I turned around. The man was standing near the dumpster, just barely visible under the streetlight, watching us. "Get in the car," I whispered. Sophie fumbled with her keys, and that's when my phone buzzed. A Facebook message. The name read Mark Jensen. No profile picture. No mutual friends. I almost ignored it until I read the message. "Don't run. Wheels are faster than feet." My heart dropped. Attached were photos. One of me outside the coffee shop near my apartment. Another of Sophie and me shopping at Target. Another me taking my dog out from across the street. And then the last one, us sitting inside Taco Haven. Taken just now, my hands trembled. "Sophie, look." She glanced at my phone, her face going pale. "What the hell? How did he?" Headlights flickered on at the end of the parking lot. A white van. "Run!" I yelled. We sprinted toward her car, but the van's engine roared to life, tires squealing. Sophie dropped her keys. "Forget it! Go!" I grabbed her hand and we bolted toward the alley behind the restaurant. The van turned sharply, the headlights cutting across the pavement like knives. We reached the back door of the neighboring laundromat. It was locked. I pounded on it, screaming for help. No answer. Sophie's apartment was only a few blocks away. We had no choice. We ran. Every step felt like dragging through mud, our lungs burning. Behind us, the van's engine grew louder. When we reached her building, she tripped on the stair. Shit, my ankle. "Get up! Get up!" I pulled her arm, my hands shaking so hard I could barely grip the keys. The van screeched to a stop at the curb. The side door slid open. I shoved the key into the lock, and we stumbled inside just as heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs. The door barely latched before his foot jammed into the crack. I screamed and slammed the door as hard as I could. It caught his boot, then his fingers, and with one final shove, it slammed shut. Silence. Then laughter. Deep, wheezing laughter. "You girls shouldn't run," he said through the door. His voice was muffled but clear. "It's no fun when they run." Sophie was crying, her hands shaking as she dialed 911. "Please, please hurry. He's outside. He followed us." We heard movement around the back of the building, then the unmistakable sound of a window rattling. "Closet," I whispered. "Go!" We squeezed into the hall closet, the smell of dust and detergent filling the air. Every sound felt amplified, the creak of the floorboards, the thump of my heart. Footsteps, then his voice. "Come out! Come out!" Sophie clamped her hand over her mouth to keep from sobbing. Something crashed in the living room, glass shattered. He was inside. I couldn't breathe. Every instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. Then, sirens. Red and blue lights flashed through the cracks of the blinds. The footsteps stopped. "Police!" Hands up. The closet door burst open, and I nearly screamed until I saw the uniforms. We were safe. The man, Mark Jensen, was tackled just outside the apartment. In his van, police found ropes, duct tape, zip ties, and a vial labeled Rohypnol. He'd been stalking girls across Austin for months, through social media, parking lots, anywhere he could find them. We were lucky, so damn lucky. For weeks afterward, I couldn't sleep without checking every lock twice. Sophie quit Taco Haven, and I moved to a new place across town. Sometimes I still dream about that night. The laughter, the photos, the headlights. And sometimes when my phone buzzes unexpectedly, my heart still stops, just for a second, wondering if it's him again. Hello friends, I hope you're enjoying this story. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please hit the subscribe button so you can get a new story every day. Story 4. I never thought much about ghosts or curses or any of that creepy late-night stuff people tell to scare each other. If you asked me back then, I'd have laughed and said the only terrifying thing at Taco Bell was cleaning the fryer after closing. But that was before the summer of 2019, before what happened in Bakersfield, California, before the night that still keeps me up every time I see a drive-through window. I was 21, broke, and trying to keep my head above water. My mom had gotten sick that year, and between her medical bills and community college tuition, I didn't have much of a choice. I needed whatever job I could get. So when a Taco Bell on the edge of town put up a "now hiring night shift" sign, I didn't think twice. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady work. The manager, a tough woman named Laura, hired me on the spot. "Closing shift pays an extra $1 an hour," she said. "Perfect," and I told her. I didn't care if it meant mopping floors until sunrise. Most nights it was just me and Derek, the assistant manager. He was a chill guy, late 20s, quiet but funny when he wanted to be. He had a way of keeping things light, even when drunk customers stumbled through the door at 2 a.m. Still, the graveyard shift was strange. There's something about being in a fast food place after midnight. The fluorescent lights hum a little too loud, and every sound feels like it's echoing in an empty world. It was a Thursday in July. The air outside was thick and humid. Even with the AC running, the kitchen felt like a sauna. By 2:40 a.m., the dinner rush was long gone, and Derek and I were halfway through cleanup. I was wiping down the counter when the drive-through headset beeped. "Beep," I groaned. "Seriously? 5 minutes before close?" Derek smirked. "Bet it's some drunk kid ordering 100 tacos. I slipped the headset on. "Welcome to Taco Bell. What can I get started for you tonight?" Silence. "Hello." I tried again, checking the small black and white screen that showed the drive-through lane. There was a car at the order box, a dark gray sedan, but the driver's window was still rolled up. The engine was idling softly. "Maybe they're looking at the menu?" Derek offered. "Yeah, maybe." Another few seconds passed. Still no response. Finally, the window rolled down, but there was no one in the driver's seat. I blinked, thinking maybe I was seeing it wrong. I leaned closer to the monitor. The seat was empty. No shadow, no movement. Derek, I said quietly. Come look at this. He walked over, frowning. What's wrong? I pointed. There's no one in the car. He squinted at the screen, then laughed. Come on, maybe they ducked down or something. I don't think so. Just then, the car started rolling forward, slow, steady, like someone had pressed the gas gently, but there was still no one behind the wheel. Okay, nope, Derek muttered, stepping back. That's not normal. The car pulled up to the payment window and stopped. Then, 3 loud knocks, right against the glass. Bang, bang, bang. We both jumped. My heart was hammering so loud I could barely breathe. Who's there? I stammered, even though I could see no one standing outside. Derek whispered, Don't open it, dude. But curiosity got the better of me. I leaned forward and unlatched the window just an inch, just enough to peek out. The car was right there, engine running softly, empty. And then, in the reflection of the glass, I saw it, a pale face in the back seat, eyes sunken deep, a grin stretched too wide to be human. I stumbled back, slamming the window shut so hard the latch cracked. Derek, I gasped. There's someone in the back seat. He rushed to the monitor. The screen showed nothing. The back seat was empty again. The car started moving forward, slow as before, rolling past the window and disappearing out of the camera's view. We didn't say a word after that. We just locked up, shut down everything early, and left without looking back. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that face grinning through the glass. The next evening, I wasn't scheduled to work, but something in me couldn't let it go. I told myself I was being stupid, but around 2:45 a.m., I drove back to the Taco Bell and parked across the street. The store lights were still on. Derek was inside, cleaning like always. Then, right at 2:55 a.m., a car pulled into the drive-thru. My stomach dropped. Same car, same dull hum of the engine, same stillness. The window didn't roll down. No one spoke through the order box. And then I saw it again. That shadow in the back seat, barely visible, but there. Derek stepped toward the drive-thru window, headset on. I almost yelled out to stop him, but before I could, the car rolled forward, slowly, like it knew exactly where to go. I watched as Derek froze, then ripped off his headset and backed away. The car drifted toward the exit and disappeared down the street. I waited for Derek to come outside, but he didn't. The lights inside flickered once, then went dark. Derek quit the next morning, didn't even come to pick up his last paycheck. I lasted another week before I told Laura I was done too. She didn't argue. Maybe she saw the look in my eyes, the kind that said I wasn't sleeping right anymore. A few nights later, I drove by out of habit. The Taco Bell was closed for maintenance. A handwritten sign hung on the door. Temporarily closed due to system issues. But I swear, as I sat there, I saw a gray sedan parked in the drive-thru lane. No driver, no headlights. Just the faint hum of an engine that shouldn't have been running. I didn't stick around to find out more. It's been 5 years since that summer. I live in another state now, working at an auto shop. Normal hours, normal life. But every now and then, when I'm driving late and past a fast food place with its neon lights flickering in the dark, I catch sight of a car in the drive-thru lane. Gray old model. Windows tinted. Engine running soft. I tell myself it's just my imagination. Just the ghost of a memory. But part of me knows better. Some orders never really get canceled. Some customers never really leave. And somewhere out there, around 2:55 a.m., that same gray sedan still pulls up to a window, waiting for someone to answer. Story 5. I was 17 the last time I ever stepped inside a Taco Bell. Back then, I didn't think much about small-town rumors or ghost stories. I thought people just made them up to scare each other. You know, something to talk about when there's nothing else to do. But after what happened that night in the middle of nowhere, I don't laugh at that kind of stuff anymore. It was late August in 2021. The air was thick and heavy, that kind of summer humidity that makes the world feel half asleep. My mom had remarried earlier that year, and we were still trying to bond as a family, which basically meant weekend trips I never asked for. That evening, we were driving back home from my stepdad's sister's place in Ridgeview, Arkansas, heading toward Pine Hollow, a quiet town that didn't even have a movie theater anymore. The road was empty except for our car and the occasional truck that thundered past. My stepdad, Tom, was behind the wheel, humming along to some old Eagles song, his fingers tapping against the steering wheel in rhythm. My mom was asleep in the passenger seat, her head tilted toward the window. "You hungry, kiddo?" Tom asked, glancing at me through the rearview mirror. I shrugged. "A little. There's a Taco Bell up ahead, I think," he said. "Last stop before Pine Hollow." I hesitated. I never liked fast food places much. Something about them always made me uneasy. Not the food, but the feeling. The artificial lights, the sticky floors, the weird silence that sat between beeps from the fryer. My grandma used to say our family had a sensitivity to strange things. "You'll just feel when a place isn't right," she'd tell me, her voice serious like it was a warning. I didn't really believe her, at least not back then. "Sure," I said finally. "I could eat." Tom nodded, flicked on the blinker, and we pulled off the highway. The Taco Bell sat at the corner of a quiet intersection, half hidden behind a gas station. The neon sign buzzed faintly, one of the letters flickering between life and death. It was just after 9, and the parking lot was full. Locals, travelers, and a few teens lingering outside, laughing too loudly. Inside, the smell of grease and taco shells hit me instantly. A low hum filled the place. Conversations, orders being called out, the sputter of the soda machine. Tom grinned. "I'll grab the food." "Go find us a seat." I nodded, scanning the tables. Most were full. Families with kids, a few people eating alone, eyes glued to their phones. Then I saw it. An empty booth near the window. Perfect. I slid into the seat, pulled out my phone, and started scrolling through Instagram. Nothing interesting. Just the same recycled pictures, the same people trying to look happier than they were. "Hey," a voice said suddenly. I looked up. A boy was sitting across from me. I hadn't seen him sit down. He was just there. He looked about my age, maybe a little younger. His dark hair fell over his forehead and he wore a faded gray hoodie that looked a size too big. There was something old-fashioned about his clothes, like something from a few years back. His eyes were dark and calm, but there was something about them that made me uneasy. Hey," I said. "I didn't see you sit down." He smiled a little. "Guess you were busy on your phone." I chuckled awkwardly. "Yeah, I guess." "You from around here?" he asked. "Kind of. We live about 40 minutes out in Pine Hollow." "You?" He hesitated. "Used to be." Something about the way he said it made the back of my neck prickle. I tried to keep it casual. "You go to Ridgeview High?" "I did," he said softly. "Before." Before what? I wanted to ask, but something in his tone told me not to. We talked for a few minutes. Small talk, mostly. Favorite movies, the kind of stuff you say to fill silence. But the whole time, I couldn't shake the feeling that people were looking at us. Not just glancing. Staring. A woman waiting for her order kept darting her eyes toward our booth. A man at the counter turned twice, frowning slightly. The boy didn't seem to notice. He kept his eyes on me, calm and steady. "I used to come here a lot," he said suddenly. "It was my favorite place." "Oh yeah?" I asked, forcing a smile. "You must really like tacos." He laughed softly. "Yeah, I like the ones with extra cheese." It was such a normal thing to say, but the way he said it, almost distantly, made my stomach twist. Before I could respond, I heard Tom's voice near the door. "Got the food. You ready?" I stood up quickly, relieved. "Yeah, nice talking to you," I told the boy. He smiled. "Yeah. See you around." I nodded and walked toward the door, but something made me look back. The booth was empty. The boy was gone. I frowned, scanning the restaurant. He couldn't have left that fast. There was only one exit, right by us. Tom nudged me. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said slowly. "Just thought I saw someone I knew." We walked out into the parking lot. I climbed into the truck, and Tom started the engine. As we pulled out, I glanced back at the Taco Bell. The boy was standing by the window. He was watching me, one hand lifted in a small, slow wave. A chill ran through me, so sharp it felt like my skin turned to ice. I blinked, and he was gone. "Everything all right?" Tom asked. "Yeah," I said quickly. "Just thought I saw something." He gave me a curious look but didn't press. We drove in silence for a few minutes, the headlights cutting through the darkness. I couldn't stop thinking about that wave, that smile. Something felt wrong. As we passed the edge of the Taco Bell parking lot, I saw something glowing in the headlights. A small memorial by the curb. Candles, flowers, a framed photo. "Tom," I whispered, "stop the truck." He frowned. "What?" "Please, just for a second." He sighed but pulled over to the shoulder. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking, and searched Taco Bell Ridgeview accident. An old news article popped up. Headline, "Teen killed in parking lot accident. Ridgeview Taco Bell, 2018. I opened it. The story said a 13-year-old boy had been left inside the restaurant while his parents ran across the street. He'd gone outside to look for them, and a car turning too fast hit him before anyone could react. There was a photo at the bottom. It was the boy I'd just spoken to. My breath caught. My fingers went numb. "Kid? You okay?" Tom asked, glancing over. I couldn't answer. I just stared at the photo, the same face that had smiled at me across the table, the same eyes that had watched me from the window. Tom frowned, looking concerned now. "You're pale. What's wrong?" I finally found my voice, barely. "He was just there." "Inside who?" "The boy," I whispered. "The one from the article." Tom looked confused, then shook his head. "You probably saw some kid who looked like him. Don't freak yourself out, but I knew what I saw. And I knew, somehow, he'd seen me too." That night I lay awake for hours. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that window. That small wave. That empty booth. I kept thinking about what he'd said. "I used to come here a lot." Maybe he didn't mean when he was alive. Maybe he still did. And maybe, just for a few minutes, he didn't want to be forgotten. I never went back to that Taco Bell again. And even now, whenever we pass that exit on the highway, I look away. Because I swear, in the reflection of that flickering neon sign, sometimes I still see him. Sitting by the window. Waiting. Story 6. I never thought something as ordinary as a late-night food run could leave a scar. You grow up thinking danger has a certain look. A dark alley, a stranger's van, some shadowy figure lurking behind you. But sometimes it hides in the places you trust the most. In the glow of a drive-through sign, in the hum of a soda machine, in the quiet spaces between one order and the next. It started 2 months ago, on what should have been just another Tuesday night. I was exhausted. Between college and my evening shifts at the Shell station off Route 9, sleep had become more of a rumor than a reality. My name's Evan, by the way. 19, a community college sophomore in Belridge, Ohio. I wasn't anything special, just a kid trying to make rent, keep grades up, and not lose his mind. That Tuesday had been brutal. My chemistry lab had run late. My manager made me stay an extra hour to mop up a spilled oil mess, and by the time I clocked out, my stomach was clawing at itself. The only thing open that late? Taco Bell. Belridge wasn't exactly buzzing at night. By 11:30 p.m., the streets went dead quiet except for the occasional car passing by. The Taco Bell on Ashbury Road sat at the edge of town, next to a shuttered car wash and a dimly lit laundromat. I'd been there dozens of times. I practically lived off their chicken quesadillas during finals week. That night, though, it felt different. When I pulled into the lot, the first thing I noticed was the silence. Usually, there'd be at least one other car in line, or some muffled music bleeding from a speaker. But the parking lot was empty. The neon sign buzzed weakly, half of the letters flickering out. I rolled forward, my headlights slicing through the darkness. The lobby lights were off, even the drink machine glow. Gone. Guess they closed early, I muttered to myself, but something inside me hesitated. The drive-through sign still said, "Open late," midnight in faded white paint. So I figured, what's the harm in checking? I eased up to the speaker box. Hey, anyone still open?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Nothing. A long, static hum filled the air. I sighed, ready to pull off, when suddenly the speaker crackled. It wasn't static this time. It was a voice. Low, muffled, way too close to the mic. I couldn't make out the words, but it sent a cold ripple down my spine. "Hello?" I said, leaning closer. No answer. Just a slow, heavy breath against the speaker. "All right, that's weird," I muttered, shifting my car into drive. As I rolled forward, my eyes flicked toward the first window, the one where you pay. It was pitch dark inside, no one there. But when I reached the second window, the pickup window, I froze. There was someone standing behind the glass. At first, I thought maybe it was an employee closing up late, but then my headlights caught their face, or what I thought was their face. A mask, a clown mask. Not the happy, colorful kind. It was pale white, cracked down the cheek, with black holes for eyes and smeared red lips stretching too wide. The second my lights hit them, the figure ducked out of sight. My heart jumped into my throat. I slammed on the gas, tires screeching as I tore out of the lot and onto the main road. By the time I pulled into the gas station 2 blocks away, my hands were shaking. I parked under the bright canopy lights, trying to catch my breath. "What the hell was that?" I whispered to myself. "A prank? Maybe some kids broke in. Maybe it was an employee screwing around. But the way they moved, that quick duck like they didn't want to be seen, it didn't feel like a prank." I almost called the cops, but stopped. What would I even say? "Hey, there's a guy in a clown mask inside Taco Bell." They'd think I was high or paranoid. I tried to brush it off, told myself it was nothing, until the next night, Wednesday. My shift ended earlier, around 10:30. I debated skipping food, but hunger won. Against all logic, I found myself driving back to Taco Bell. This time, everything looked normal. The parking lot was lit. A few cars lined up in the drive-thru. The faint glow of fryers and soda machines pulsed inside. I laughed nervously. "See? You're fine," I muttered, pulling up to order. A girl's voice came through the speaker, bright, friendly. "Hi, welcome to Taco Bell. What can I get for you tonight?" I placed my usual order, quesadilla, Baja Blast, and pulled up. The girl at the window couldn't have been much older than me. Ponytail, purple visor, tired eyes. She handed me my drink. I hesitated. "Hey, this might sound weird, but were you guys open last night?" She looked puzzled. "No, we closed early. Around 9, I think." "Why?" My stomach dropped. "Oh, no reason. I just thought I saw someone here late." Her eyebrows furrowed. "What do you mean?" I almost let it go, but curiosity won. "There was someone in the window," I said, "wearing, I don't know, a clown mask maybe?" Her face went pale instantly. "Wait," she whispered, leaning closer. "You saw him?" I blinked. "Him? You've seen him too?" She bit her lip, glancing nervously over her shoulder toward the kitchen. Then she leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You're not the first person to say that." "What do you mean?" I asked, my throat tightening. "Couple months ago, some guy came through after close. Said the same thing. Heard a voice. Saw someone in the window with a mask. He freaked out. Called the cops." "What happened?" She swallowed. "They checked the security footage. But there was nothing." "Nothing?" I repeated. "No one in the store. No movement. Just his car sitting there. The audio picked up him talking, but no response. No figure. Nothing on the window feed." I felt my pulse quicken. "You're serious?" She nodded slowly. "Management doesn't talk about it. But after that, no one stays here past closing." Ever a silence hung between us, broken only by the hum of the drive-thru lights. "Look," she said finally, "whatever you saw, just don't come here after hours again, okay?" I didn't argue. I just nodded, grabbed my food, and drove off. That was 2 months ago. I haven't gone back since. But sometimes, when I'm working late at the gas station, I catch myself staring across the road toward that Taco Bell sign, flickering in the distance. And sometimes, when the lot's empty and the streets are quiet, I swear I hear a faint crackle, like a drive-through speaker coming to life, followed by a low voice whispering words I can't quite understand. The weirdest part, They tore that Taco Bell down last week, said it was condemned. But when they started the demolition, one of the workers told my friend they found something inside the walls. An old drive-through headset, still powered on, still crackling, still whispering. Story 7. I never used to be the kind of person who got scared easily. I grew up in Ridgeway, a small town just outside of Columbus, Ohio. The kind of place where nothing ever really happened. Crime was low, the streets were quiet after 10 p.m., and the most exciting thing we ever got was when the county fair came around every summer. I guess that's why I never thought twice about late-night drives, especially to Taco Bell. It was part of my routine. Tuesdays were my worst days. Back-to-back classes at Ridgeway Community College, followed by my part-time shift at the Valero gas station on Highway 19. By the time I clocked out, my head was buzzing, my hands smelled like diesel, and my stomach felt like a hollow pit. Taco Bell was my salvation. It wasn't just the food, though God knows I could inhale a crunch wrap in 2 bites. It was the comfort of the ritual, the quiet hum of the car engine, the glow of the drive-through lights, the sound of someone saying, "Welcome to Taco Bell. How can I help you?" It made me feel normal, safe even. But that night, 2 months ago, changed that forever. It was 11:42 p.m. when I pulled into the Taco Bell on Ridgeway Boulevard. Normally, there'd be a few cars ahead of me, maybe a couple of guys coming from the gym, or late-night students grabbing a bite. But that night, the lot was empty. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured maybe it was a slow night. Still, something about the place felt wrong. The building looked darker than usual. The inside lights were off, except for one faint glow near the back. The neon open late sign wasn't lit. Even the big menu screen flickered like it was struggling to stay on. I hesitated at the speaker box, rolling my window down halfway. "Hello," I said, leaning slightly toward the mic. "You guys still open?" For a few seconds, there was nothing. Just the sound of my engine idling and the faint buzz of the overhead light. Then suddenly the speaker crackled to life. But instead of the usual cheerful voice, I heard something else. A low, garbled sound, like someone breathing directly into the microphone. Then faintly a whisper, too distorted to understand. I frowned, trying to listen harder. Sorry, I didn't catch that." "You open?" Silence. Then more static. This time it almost sounded like words. "Come around." But the voice was so close, so low, it made the hairs on my neck rise. I swallowed. "Yeah, no thing," I muttered, and shifted into drive. As I rolled forward, I glanced toward the windows. The first one, where you normally pay, was pitch black. No movement, no workers, no light. I started to convince myself it was just closed. Maybe they were having electrical issues. But when I got to the pickup window, I saw something that made my stomach twist. There was someone standing inside. At first, I thought it might be an employee, maybe closing up. But then my headlights hit the glass. He wasn't wearing a uniform. He was wearing a mask. A white face, exaggerated red lips, hollow black eyes. A clown mask. The second the light hit him, he ducked, fast like he'd been caught doing something he shouldn't. I didn't think. I slammed my foot on the gas. My tires screeched as I tore out of the parking lot, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I didn't stop until I was parked under the bright lights of a speedway station a few blocks away. For a minute, I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. Who the hell hides in a Taco Bell in a clown mask? I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? "Hey, there's a masked guy inside Taco Bell?" It wasn't exactly a crime, and maybe, just maybe, it was a prank. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. There was something about the way he'd moved, the way he ducked the second I saw him. It wasn't playful, it was deliberate. I went home that night with my stomach in knots. I barely slept. The next evening, I got off work early. Part of me wanted to forget the whole thing. But another part needed to know, needed proof I wasn't crazy. So, like an idiot, I went back. This time the place looked normal again. Lights on, a couple of cars in the drive-thru. I pulled in, ordered a quesadilla, and drove up to the window. A young woman, maybe my age, opened it, smiling politely. Her name tag said Haley. As she handed me my drink, I hesitated. Hey, weird question. Were you guys open last night? She blinked. No, we closed early. Around 9, I think. Why? I swallowed. No reason. I just thought I saw someone here. Her brow furrowed. Someone? Yeah, a guy, inside wearing a mask. For a second, her expression didn't change. But then I saw it. The tiniest flicker of fear. She leaned in slightly. Wait, you saw him too? My stomach dropped. What do you mean too? She glanced over her shoulder before lowering her voice. You're not the first person to say that. A few months ago, someone else came through late at night. Said they saw the same thing. Dark building, weird voice, someone in a mask. Cops came and checked the cameras. And, I asked, my throat dry, there was nothing there. That conversation haunted me for days. I told myself it was nothing, that maybe I'd seen a reflection or some prankster, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was going on. Then 3 nights later, my phone buzzed at 1:27 a.m. It was my coworker, Evan, who also worked at the gas station. Dude, his voice was low, shaky. You won't believe this. Taco Bell's on the news. I sat up in bed. What? There was a break-in. Ridgeway Taco Bell. Cops found blood inside. When I pulled up the article online, my blood ran cold. Police were investigating an attempted robbery at the Ridgeway Taco Bell. According to reports, a masked man broke in after hours. The night shift worker, a girl named Haley Brooks, had been attacked but managed to fight him off. She was in stable condition at Ridgeway Memorial. They said the suspect fled on foot, leaving a blood trail behind. DNA was collected, but no match had been found. I stared at the photo attached to the article. The Taco Bell drive-thru I knew so well, now wrapped in yellow tape. The same window where I'd seen that mask. My stomach turned. I couldn't stop thinking. If I'd gone inside that night, would it have been me? For weeks I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that pale white mask, those hollow eyes. I found myself checking my locks twice, 3 times before bed. I stopped driving at night. I even quit my job at the gas station. The fear stuck to me like smoke. It didn't help that the cops never found the guy. The last update I heard was that they'd matched the blood to an unidentified male with no criminal record. No one ever came forward. No arrests. Nothing. It was like he'd just vanished. A year passed. I started classes again. Switched my major to mortuary science. Don't ask me why. Maybe I thought if I studied death, I could stop being afraid of it. Life started to settle. I even began dating someone. Alex, a quiet guy from my anatomy lab who worked nights at a local diner. We hit it off fast. Maybe too fast. But he made me feel safe again. The first person who didn't look at me like I was fragile. One evening, about a year later, I ran into someone familiar outside a cafe near campus. It was Samantha, one of the Taco Bell cooks. Lena, she said, smiling weakly. Hey, wow, haven't seen you since. Well, you know, I nodded, feeling my throat tighten. Yeah, how have you been? She hesitated, her smile fading. Okay, I guess. I still think about that night Haley moved out of town. She couldn't stay here after what happened. I sat down across from her. Did they ever find him? Samantha shook her head. No, but you know what's weird. What? They never found his blood trail outside. It just stopped, like he disappeared for a moment. Neither of us said anything. Then she added quietly, sometimes I wonder if he ever really left. That night, I had my first nightmare in months. I was standing in the Taco Bell drive-thru again. The speaker crackled. That same distorted voice whispered, come around. And when I looked up, he was there, at the window, mask and all. Only this time the glass slid open, and he whispered, you shouldn't have come back. It's been 2 years now. Alex and I got married last spring. We moved 3 towns over into a small house with a fenced yard and bright windows that let the light in. I don't drive at night anymore. We don't eat fast food, ever. Some nights when I can't sleep, I still find myself scrolling through news sites, half hoping, half dreading to see that they've caught him. But they never do. And sometimes when I stop at a red light late in the evening, I swear I hear it. The faint crackle of a speaker, followed by that same voice, low, distorted. Come, around. Story 8. I never used to think of myself as someone who believed in strange things. Ghost stories, time slips, all that supernatural nonsense. It never felt real to me. I was the type to roll my eyes at horror movies and laugh at TikToks of people claiming they saw something in the dark. But that was before what happened in Everett, before that night at Taco Bell. It started like any other Tuesday. The air outside was heavy with early spring chill, that kind of cold that sneaks into your bones even when you're wearing a hoodie. I had just finished a grueling workout at the gym near my apartment. Legs like jelly, shirt soaked, heart still thumping from the last set of squats. My friend Ryan was with me. He'd been training for his firefighter test, and working out with him always turned into some kind of competition. We were both starving. "Dude, I could destroy like 10 tacos right now," Ryan said, tossing his gym bag into the backseat of my car. "Yeah, same," I replied, laughing. "Taco Bell?" He grinned. "Obviously." We drove to the Taco Bell on Evergreen Way, the one that sat awkwardly between a 24-hour gas station and a closed-down laundromat. It wasn't the best neighborhood, but it was close, and honestly at that hour, convenience mattered more than comfort. It was just past 6:20 p.m. The sun was dipping behind the trees, bleeding orange light through the low-hanging clouds. Everything looked normal. Cars passing by, people grabbing takeout, the faint hum of the freeway in the distance. Still, I remember thinking, something feels off tonight. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was just hunger. But that feeling stuck with me. Inside, the place was mostly empty except for two teenagers sitting near the window, their faces lit by their phones, and a middle-aged man eating alone in the corner. The smell of grease and spice hit instantly, comforting, familiar. Ryan nudged me. "You okay?" "You look pale." "Yeah," I muttered, rubbing my temple. "Just a little lightheaded." "Probably dehydrated." We walked to the counter, and while he placed our order, a strange wave of nausea rolled through me. It was sudden, violent, like my stomach was twisting in on itself. "I'll be right back," I told Ryan, stumbling toward the restroom. He frowned. "You good, man?" "I'm fine," I lied. The bathroom was small, just one stall, one urinal, one sink. The fluorescent light above flickered faintly, humming like a mosquito trapped in a jar. I barely made it to the toilet before throwing up. The sound echoed. My breath came in harsh, uneven gas as I leaned my head against the cold tile wall. My watch said 6:34 p.m. I stayed like that for what felt like a minute, maybe two. Then came the knocking. At first, I thought it was just Ryan checking on me. "Hey, give me a sec," I called weakly, voice hoarse. But the knocking didn't stop. It grew harder, faster. Bang, bang, bang. Like someone was desperate. Then I heard Ryan's voice, muffled but panicked. "Bro, you okay in there? You've been gone for hours." I froze. Hours? My heart started pounding as I glanced at my watch again. It still read 6:34. That couldn't be right. "Ryan, what are you talking about?" I said, standing slowly, dizzy. "I just came in here." The door rattled again. "Man, it's 10:30. The staff was about to call the cops." My throat went dry. I turned toward the mirror, and my stomach dropped. My reflection looked different. My skin was pale, like I hadn't seen sunlight in days. My eyes had dark circles beneath them, and there was something in the mirror's background, like a faint outline of a shadow behind me. But when I turned around, there was nothing. I yanked open the door. Ryan and two Taco Bell employees were standing outside. Their faces said it all: fear, confusion, disbelief. "You've been in there for 4 hours," said a woman wearing a purple visor. Her voice trembled. "We knocked a dozen times. You didn't answer." I shook my head. No way. I swear I was in there for 5 minutes. Maybe less." Ryan's face was pale. "Your food's cold, man." The drinks melted. "We thought you passed out." I stepped out into the dining area. The place looked different somehow. The lighting felt dimmer, like the bulbs were struggling to stay lit. The air smelled stale, heavier than before. I looked down at our tray, tacos soggy, wrappers damp. The Baja Blast had turned to flat, syrupy liquid. Time didn't just pass, it skipped. We didn't stick around. Ryan practically dragged me out to the car. "You sure you're okay?" He kept asking, voice shaky. "I don't know," I said honestly. I don't understand what happened." As we drove off, I felt a pressure in my chest, like the air itself was pushing against me. Every shadow outside seemed to move just slightly when I wasn't looking. When I dropped Ryan off, he was quiet. Before he got out, he turned to me. "Don't go back there," he said. "Promise me." I wasn't planning to. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that flickering light, that reflection behind me in the mirror. I kept thinking about how my watch had stopped at 6:34. When I checked it the next morning, it was working fine. But the weird part, it was exactly 4 hours behind. Over the next week, things only got worse. Ryan stopped answering my texts. The one time he picked up, he sounded different. His voice was distant, almost hollow. "I'm not sleeping," he said quietly. "Every night I see that bathroom, but it's not empty. There's something in the mirror." Watching Ryan, he hung up. By the second week, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove back to the Taco Bell in broad daylight, telling myself I just needed closure, that maybe it was all some weird medical thing. But when I pulled into the parking lot, I knew something was wrong. The lot was empty. The lights were off. The sign still glowed open in faded neon, even though it clearly wasn't. I got out of my car. The air was colder here, unnaturally so. My breath fogged even though it was nearly 60 degrees out. Then I heard it, faint rhythmic knocking coming from inside the building. Bang, bang, bang. I froze. It was coming from the bathroom. Through the glass front window, I could see movement, something dark shifting just out of sight. Then a figure appeared in the reflection of the window. Not behind me, not inside, but in the reflection itself. It looked like a person made of static, gray, shapeless, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. Its face was a blur, but I could feel it watching me. I ran. That night I got a message. It was from Ryan. "Ryan, you've seen it too, haven't you?" Before I could type back, another message came in, from a number I didn't recognize. "Unknown. It's not over." I dropped my phone. My pulse was racing. A few seconds later, a notification popped up from the Taco Bell's official social media account. A new post. The caption read, "Some stories never end." The attached photo was the inside of the restaurant. The lights flickering, tables empty. And in the corner of the frame, near the bathroom door, was that same figure, standing perfectly still, facing the camera. I moved out of Everett 3 weeks later. I never heard from Ryan again. His apartment was cleared out, lease terminated early. The police said he moved back home, but when I called his parents, they said they hadn't seen him in months. Sometimes late at night, my phone buzzes with messages from an unknown number. No words, just a timestamp. 6:34 p.m. And every time I swear I can hear faint knocking, coming not from outside but from somewhere inside my walls. I don't go near Taco Bell's anymore. Not in Everett, not anywhere. Because I know now, it's not the food that makes people sick. It's the place. And if you ever walk into a Taco Bell and the air feels too still, too heavy, check the time before you go in. And whatever you do, don't look in the mirror. Friends, be sure to tell in the comments which story you like the most, and don't forget to subscribe and like.